folks, welcome to the Tech Town Square. Good evening for everyone tuning in. We are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. This is the Town Square, the new version, the COVID version, the 2021 version of the Town Square, where you have myself, my co-host, Eddie Doyle. Eddie, good evening. Good morning.
Fantastic.
It's morning somewhere.
The new Millennium Town Square, right, James? I mean, look, this is how it's going to have to happen. Yeah, and it's beautiful because guess what? We can talk to people from all over the world. I've got Berlin's Town Square behind me for reasons that I've mentioned in the past. I'll be happy to do so again. And we're very excited this week. We're going to be talking, James brought up a great subject a couple of days ago. He texted me, the battle between Facebook and Apple on privacy. So this is going to be so much fun. There's so much to talk about today. I did 5 minutes of research and all of a sudden it turned into 2 hours earlier today. So there's a lot to talk about in this subject matter. James, my friend, how are you this week?
Listen, I am wonderful. For all of those tuning in, just a few ground rules. You can comment, ask questions, let us know what you think. This is the Town Square. Feel free to express your opinion, whatever it may is. I guarantee you, whether we agree or not, we will always like you and appreciate you as a listener and follower of the Town Square. Our idea is to talk. The purpose of the show is to really talk about ideas. Ideas. And Apple versus Facebook is the battle of the giants, right? This isn't David versus Goliath.
Right.
Okay. These are two superpowers on a collision course. This is Armageddon.
All right, folks. Goliath.
Yeah, this is Goliath versus Goliath, and it's gonna get crazy over the next few weeks, months, in the next year to come along, as you know, the stuff kind of gets more spotlight.
Brilliant. And for those people that have maybe not caught up on this, I was chatting with my wife a little bit earlier today, and I was saying, we're going to do, she'd say, what are you doing tonight in the Tech Town Square? So we're going to talk about, the Goliath versus Goliath, as James puts it, for Facebook versus Apple. She said, what's happening? Okay, so for those of you that don't know what's happening, here's what's happening, my friends. So there is an ad, a full-page ad. Here it is, right? Full-page ad right behind me here, okay? And that Facebook has been taking out against Apple. Like attacking Apple. Okay, this is just so much fun for me. I don't know why. I get tickled with this kind of stuff. So the ad here basically says, we're standing up to Apple for small businesses everywhere. It's like, really, Facebook? You're the small business champion? Okay, Mr. Zuckerberg.
Oh, I love it.
Backfired on them. It totally backfired on them, this whole ad campaign.
Facebook for small businesses everywhere.
Yeah,
because I totally see Zuck going to visit the local florist shop in small town somewhere going, hi, I'd like to buy my wife a dozen roses of your finest roses, ma'am.
Yeah. And of course, they defend that position by means that their revenue stream is based on not just small businesses, very big businesses too, but businesses being able to advertise. So we understand that. So here's the battle. Let's lay out a little bit of the groundwork. So in Brussels last week, so let's have a look. It was in, I believe it was in Brussels. I took a note here. I'm just trying to see whether it was the Privacy Forum or the Privacy.
It's the
Computers,
Privacy and Data Protection Conference.
Right, in Brussels, marking the International Data Privacy Day. So here's a great statement that I pulled from Tim Cook. So this is the heart of the issue. Here's the statement, quote, if a business is built on misleading users, on data exploitation, on choices that are no choices at all, then it does not deserve our praise. It deserves reform. So that's Tim Cook. And we all know he was speaking about Facebook. And so Facebook have hit back because, of course, their famous mantra is Mark Zuckerberg's quote. And I'm cherry picking quotes here. I recognize this, ladies and gentlemen, but it sets the foundation for what we're going to discuss today. Here's Zuck's quote. Move fast and break things. Unless you are breaking stuff, you're not moving fast enough. And so Facebook's entire business model is about monetizing the user. That's you. And I've often joked in a slightly heartless sense that complaining about it is like the cow complaining how the steak gets served. We are the stakes, ladies and gentlemen, to Facebook, and they are cutting us up and dividing us as they see as they see fit. And so, because of this, and because of Apple's current stance that they will not monetize their users' data, Tim Cook has also come out and said things like algorithms are basically a scourge of society, and that's exactly what Facebook's business model is all about. So, enter the battle. James, thank you. It's such a great subject matter for us this week. I've got so much more to say. We'll get to it in just a moment. What else should we talk about?
Well, let's talk about this specific topic, because I think it's brilliant. You've read a few quotes there, and I think the most the biggest one though is Tim Cook's. And Tim Cook's speech never once mentioned Facebook, but right. It's like someone talking about an old man with dementia, right? And not saying the old man with dementia's name. Okay. But talking about an old man with dementia.
Okay, I've got a politician in mind. Where are you going with this?
Right. So when I say an old man with dementia, everyone knows exactly who I'm talking about without even saying the person's name.
Okay. All right, good.
And so Tim Cook was speaking.
Yeah.
And he was speaking about the old man with dementia. That was and Facebook taking full page ads in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post also shows how disconnected they are from the small businesses right. They claim to be trying to defend from Apple.
Right. Right. Yeah, what an irony. Yeah, sometimes you can be so narrow focused, which you have to be to build $1 billion business. I mean, credit to the fact that clearly Zuck and the rest of the team have got the ability to create an amazing business, but they're so focused. I think they've missed so much because I think the public are laughing at them on this matter.
I think the public now understands what Facebook is. So let me give you some stuff. Facebook, who's standing up, what did they say? We're standing up for small business, right?
Right.
So let me just give you some stuff that Facebook's done in the last 24 hours. Facebook banned a Virginia gun group from its platform. Facebook shut down ads of a group looking to recall a governor of a specific state.
Wow.
Okay.
That's incredible interference. It's like Brexit all over again. It's like wow, go on.
Right. And Facebook is, and those are just the two most recent things I have that I can back up. There's other stuff that I have not been able to confirm, so I'm not going to bring it up. One thing I aim to do on the show is bringing stuff that I can back up with links in the show notes, so you guys are able to go read it and form your own opinions. Don't believe me. Don't believe Eddie. Listen to us, take it in, but at the end of the day, make up your own mind, think for yourself, and not like anyone else. Now, here's an interesting aspect. There was a story today in the New York Times, and 3 or 4 people had written this story or contributed to the story. Several of them were former Facebook people, talking about appointing a reality czar to help address misinformation and disinformation.
Okay.
Very Orwellian 1984.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Who's the czar?
Right. Who's the czar? And who's he to determine what's disinformation and misinformation?
I was going to say, if the czar's not me, I don't want the czar.
Right. I think that's about 300 million Americans, right? That might be the case. There might be 20 million who go, okay, we're in our echo chamber and we're okay with it. But the rest of the people are not. So I want to address this from 2 aspects. One, let's first of all understand what Facebook is and what Apple is, because I think that's really important. Ron DeSantis, Ron DeSantis, if you guys don't know, the governor of the great state of Florida, hopefully my future home, is going to war with big tech tyrants. And what he's done now is he's essentially going to pass a law in Florida that says if you deplatform any political candidate if you use any algorithms on any political candidates or political ads or anything to do with free speech and politics, you'll be fined $100,000 a day for doing that. And they're also moving to ban algorithms to be used against citizens and residents of the state of Florida. Something tells me Florida doesn't have enough land for the amount of people that are going to go live there because of it.
Well, just break up the banning algorithms for a second, because I don't know how they could enforce that, because some algorithms are good, right? I mean, we depend on algorithms.
They're talking about news feed algorithms on social media. They're not talking about algorithms in just general. Like all algorithms are now illegal. No. They're talking about algorithms, right, in social media. Listen, the Florida thing is very interesting.
Yeah.
The question is, how many more states are going to go along with this? I've heard rumors that after the DeSantis thing yesterday, Texas is going to do something similar. Georgia's looking to do something similar. North Carolina's looking to do something similar. Michigan, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas. So Nebraska, Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota. There's a movement by a bunch of states to look at the Florida law, essentially look at the Florida bill, the proposed bill. It's not a law yet, and go, Florida takes the heat on this and passes it, we'll all do the same.
Right.
And if we all do it, then big tech's lobbying would go nowhere, right? And what this would do is it would almost force the federal government to interfere with the federal legislation that we know won't pass with bipartisan support and will likely not even make it to the floor. These bills take years to come together. So this could be like the CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, right? Which is kind of only for California residents, but every company that works with a California residents has had to comply with it. So social media is now going to have to be like, are you a Florida resident? If you are, then your newsfeed is going to look different from someone living in California or New York, because they don't have that. And this is where this gets through, where Apple's a lifestyle brand. It's a company that's not looking to make money off your data. It's looking to sell you one of these. This here, folks, is an iPhone. The computer I'm using to broadcast through is a MacBook. They don't care about your data, because you're going to spend your hard-earned money, hard-earned dollars on buying an Apple product. So they see themselves as giving you all the information and allowing you to decide for yourself. That was the general Apple policy until they banned Parler from the App Store.
Right. And I want to challenge that point a little bit, James, because, since Steve Jobs' passing, Apple have not innovated. I mean, a better camera, big deal. And now we're paying, $1,000 for a new phone. I mean, there's been zero innovation. When Steve was booted the first time, there was zero innovation. And since his departure, there's been zero innovation. I wonder how long their profitability will continue without the pressure of being able to find another revenue stream. And I think it will be easy pickings to monetize the data of their users. I think at some point...
So who's innovating more than Apple right now in the computer or phone space?
Nobody, I would say. Well, maybe Samsung in the phone space, right? Samsung's got some pretty cool stuff, but I mean...
Yeah, but the Samsung stuff is the difference between BMW and Mercedes. You know what it is?
Yeah, right. Nothing.
Well, there's a slight difference between BMW and Mercedes. It was said to me by someone German who I very much adore.
Okay.
It's very simple. Here's what he said. He said, you know what the difference between BMW and Germany and Mercedes is? And I said, what? He goes, BMW will see something cool and say, throw it on the car. We'll see if it works. Okay. And then sell it to you with this cool thing that may or may not work the way they say it could work. On the other hand, Mercedes takes the idea that BMW had and goes, we're not going to put it out until we've engineered it perfectly so that it's seamless for our users.
Apple is the Mercedes. I get that.
Apple's the Mercedes. Samsung's the BMW.
Right. The whole folding flip phone cabal, for example, right?
One of many. They also had the Note that was exploding on airplanes. You couldn't bring a Samsung tablet on an airplane.
Yeah, that's true.
For a while, a few years ago. Like, I remember looking at people with tablets on the plane. I'm like, that a Samsung? You better turn that shit off.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Okay, so I'll give you that point. Absolutely. You know, there is no other company innovating as much, but at some point, because of the structure of the way Wall Street works, you're going to have to show profitability to your shareholders. And unless you're innovating, where else are you finding a revenue stream? Now, look, it's kind of a moot point for me to argue on, because today Apple does not monetize the data of their users. I'm simply not, I don't believe Tim Cook or the rest of the Apple folks that they say we will never do it. I'm not saying it's.
I believe them. I believe them. I'll tell you why I believe them, because they're not in the data business. They're not a platform company. They're an OS company. They make money off of every app you download. They make 30% off of every dollar you spend in the App Store from a non-Apple app.
Now, this leads us to exactly where the battle began between Facebook and Apple, because what Facebook, okay, let me see if I've got this right. I'll attempt it. You fill in, James. So Apple are basically proposing that they're in their new iOS update that an app that is monetizing your data as a consumer needs to inform you that they're doing that. Have I got that right?
So, yes, conceptually, you're right. They're not proposing. The new iOS update is going to allow you to see all the data that an app collects on you and restrict that data collection.
Awesome.
On the app. So you'll be able to go into, let's say, for example, this is where Facebook's really ticked off, because Facebook collects so much data on its users. You're not the user, you're the product. So Facebook, you'll be able to see, oh, they collect my location. I don't want them to do that. Off. What they see, all my clicks and likes, no, off. They can't use that anymore. What they can see, all the people I'm friends with who I'm not even on Facebook anymore.
This will destroy their business, which is why they're taking out big major page ads trying to destroy Apple.
Only it's really funny that Facebook is taking out newspaper ads when they pretty much destroyed the newspaper industry, right? Like Facebook is single-handedly responsible for more newspapers going out of business than any other online media platform. And like the irony of this thing,
it's brilliant.
You can't not laugh at it, right? Facebook, an online social media platform, like the guys that when they came out, they said, break everything, don't worry, right? They destroyed the newspaper industry, demolished it, like killed it, made non-journalists journalists. And right? now they're like, we have a serious issue with Apple here. What should we do, Mark? And he's like, take a newspaper ad. And you're like, why didn't we think about that? And you're like, what?
But there's no newspapers left, Mark.
Yeah, there's only 3 papers left in circulation: the Times, the Post, and the Journal.
And they're dirt cheap to advertising. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. It's called Apple's App Tracking Transparency, ATT. That's right. You nailed it, mate. It requires and highlights that users pay for that. Well, they're going to pay for the service. I'm reading it right here, with their personal information and habits and activity, right? That's what they're paying for when they use Facebook. This is going to be great, because I'm actually blown away by the number of people that are surprised when I tell them it's kind of like how the steak gets served, right? That you're the product on this. So I think that's going to be massive for user education. I came up with a fun little thing. Wouldn't it be amazing if Facebook were forced to put a little icon on how much they've monetized you on the Facebook app, so you could see? They'll never do this, obviously.
Well, I think your state next door to where you live is going to have Andrew Yang running for mayor of New York.
Yeah, right. I know. I've seen that.
And Andrew Yang has a very interesting idea about universal basic income, right? UBI. And I'm just like, Andrew, the government doesn't need to do that. Just go to all the social media networks and say, for every New York resident you collect, you got to pay them $100 a month.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
Yeah, people will
How
get
much we
like
monetize
500. Yeah, every social media platform that collects any data from the user and doesn't charge them and sells that data has to
Right.
pay that user $100 a month.
Or we could do this. So this is Facebook's average revenue per user in 2019, which is $29.25. Now, people will be looking at this like, really, $29, James and Eddie, this is what you're talking about? No. What you need to understand is that guys like me, I registered for Facebook because I wanted to go to a friend's birthday party. This was about a year ago. That was my time on Facebook, and I haven't been back since. So Facebook are making zero out of me. Not because I'm being punitive or because I have an agenda. I frankly just don't get it. I'm not that excited about it. If I want to hang out with my mate James, I pick up the phone. I say, let's get together when it's not COVID, and we hang out. So I'm just not a Facebook guy. So what you have to do is detract all those people from the 1 point whatever billion users Facebook has, and then multiply that $29, and you soon see how their business model works, right? So give every instead of universal basic income, Mr. Yang, just tell the social media companies to give 20% to every citizen they're gouging for their data.
Well, if they're making, $29, if their ARPU is $29 per user per month, right? If you multiply that by 12, you're at around what, $350?
Right. Okay.
So, I'm the product. As part of the product, I should get a third.
Right. Yeah, I know. Right. I mean, when has this ever happened before in human history that I am essentially being used, but I'm not getting a piece of the action? Right. It's kind of weird.
I'll tell you one that's happened in human history plenty of times. Plenty of times that's happened in human history. I'd be remiss. We're in Black History Month, but in the era of slavery, slaves were a product, but they weren't getting a piece of the action.
Ouch, man. Yeah, right. Exactly. That's
right. I mean, this has been part of human history for a very, very long time.
Exploitation of other humans is what you're basically saying.
Well, I mean, but it kind of is. I mean, Facebook, social media networks predominantly exploit you, and we started the Tech Town Square. Our first episodes were around the social dilemma. People could go back and watch episode 1 and 2 of the show, and we talk about the social dilemma. And now we're coming full circle, a few months later, and here we are. Here's the social dilemma. What's the social dilemma? Well, there's an insane social dilemma going on, right? And the insane social dilemma is we're the product. We're being exploited. We have people telling us what we should or shouldn't feel, what is right and what is wrong. If you don't agree with what someone says, the immediate thing for them to tell you is you're, the most popular word right now is what you're a white supremacist, or you're a Nazi, or you're a racist. And so this battle between Goliath, this showdown between Apple and Facebook is significant because Facebook sued Apple on antitrust laws. And I think that's the one thing people aren't realizing with this is Facebook was like, their monopoly on their app store isn't fair and they should stop it. Very interesting, because Parler has a similar lawsuit against Amazon on antitrust that they lost the initial court ruling, but now they're appealing, obviously. And that I think the Parler case is going to be ruled in the Supreme Court. I think everyone knows it's going to go to the Supreme Court. It's an antitrust law. No matter what happens in any hierarchy, that's how it's going to get resolved, is in the U.S. Supreme Court. Right. And so you have these giants now starting to, I don't want to say battle it out, but they're starting to go, well, our interests don't necessarily align. So they align in one aspect. So big tech, the Amazon, Facebook, Twitter, Google, Apple, part of it. I don't know how Apple, the only reason Apple became a part of that is because they deplatformed Parler from the App Store. and that to me was just a little weird for Apple to do, because there's plenty of apps on the App Store that are filled with hate speech and harmful content. I can name a few: Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, to just name a few. Parler was a hit job. And I think now this battle between Facebook and Apple is only going to support the claims by Parler. And the show's not about Parler, where I'm not condemning Parler. I'm not supporting or not supporting Parler. I don't support anyone getting deplatformed. I don't. I think there's something very, very wrong when you deplatform specific people and organizations, okay, and companies. The antitrust lawsuit, though, between Facebook and Apple is going to be a showdown. Apple's been a few times looked at for antitrust laws on their App Store, and they've prevailed every single time. We're a private company. Our users sign up to Apple partly because all surveys show that I trust the Apple product and I trust apps that are in the Apple App Store. They go through an extensive review process. As someone who is a technologist and who's launched multiple apps into the Apple App Store, it's not as simple as Android. The review process is extremely complex. They have very strict standards. They want to see everything. They want to know everything you do, and they want to know how you do it.
Yeah, that's great to hear, man. That's really cool.
Right?
Yeah.
So Apple looks itself, again, Apple wants to sell you the phone. That's how they make their initial set of money. Then they sell you the confidence of their App Store.
Right. Yeah, that's very cool to hear, as well as a lot of cables. But yeah, I'm joking. Yeah, exactly. They
change cables every 4 years, but that's like an auxiliary, right? They got to get you to spend $200.
I got to stick it to them on that one. I got to poke them on that one because that's a pain. But I get why it's cooler to have their lightning cable. Yeah, I like the trust that they fortified. And I will say that, Tim Cook is definitely, he's got that face of trust too, right? I mean, I listened to his, by the way, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. I listened to his speech in Brussels, and he's definitely got that sort of persona that you want to trust as well. So, and Zuckerberg's got the face that you just want to slap. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but it's just like, you know full well that there is something untrustworthy about the way, if you don't understand the algorithms, about the way Facebook conducts its business, right? Because you've got to be wondering, how are these people making money, right? There's a whole category of people there, and I would assume that that's a massive amount of people, maybe a 20th, certainly a 15th of the US population might sit there and go, I don't know how they make their money, and therefore I distrust it. I think this kind of dialogue is dragging the rest of society into a wake up, you are the product, right? The social dilemma documentary, this conversation we're having, the lawsuit that's taking place right now. And I want to bring an interesting thought into it. It's definitely related. It's not entirely correlated to this, but think back to the days of subliminal advertising. So in the 1950s and 60s, advertisers figured out that if they threw a hot dog image into one frame of a movie, they would increase hot dog sales at the concession at a movie theater. So very interesting. In actual fact, I've got a fun video. I found a fun video. Okay, so watch this. So I'll put the screen on. Okay, you can see it. So this is George Bush's political campaign against Al Gore. Okay, so this is a few years ago. And there is a subliminal message. All right, let's see if you can catch it. I've got it teed up for you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to play it right here. So here's Bush. It's against Al Gore. He's talking about, reform and these kinds of things. It's a slam. Look for the word rat. You're about to see it here. Okay. Oh, did you see it right there? Bureaucrats. It went to rats. I'll play it again real quick. Okay. Bureaucrats goes to rats. There you go. Did you see it? Okay. So that's subliminal advertising. And subliminal advertising is for the most part banned, right? It's still a bit cheeky with things like I just showed you, but it has been deemed illegal in many countries. It's banned in others. In the US, it's a little kind of like, is it banned? Is it banned? Isn't it banned? I'm not sure. But basically what they're saying is, let's see here. I wrote down a sentence here. Basically, the court ruling is subliminal advertising, because it is intended to produce information that the viewer is not aware he is receiving, has been ruled as not protected by the First Amendment. Okay, so if we are saying that subliminal advertising is, let's say, deceptive, and people don't know they're being advertised to, then if people don't know that they are the product of a whole new system, which is what Facebook's algorithms are all about and their business model is about, and why aren't we banning that too? That's an interesting question to me, right? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So subliminal advertising's ban is very different from us using a service for free and that service monetizing it through a different way, right? And I think today's show is a lot of fun because you and I literally agree on nothing.
Good. That's awesome.
So subliminal advertising is what you would consider to be snake oil salesmen. You and I work in the cybersecurity industry. We've met a few snake oil salesmen in our lifetime, or at least once a week, who are subliminally using something to tell you something about something.
Right.
And that's illegal because what they're essentially doing, and part of that was the subliminal message marketing, by the way, that the mafias were using.
Mafia? So how so?
Yeah. So mafia would use subliminal messaging by saying, if you don't use our security company, bad things will happen to your business. Bad things can happen to your business, right? But those would be the ads they would take in the paper.
The mafia used to take ads out in the paper?
Yeah, to protect businesses. Yeah, they're legit businesses to launder money. Absolutely, because they own the paper.
Right.
They launder the money.
Right.
Yeah, I understand that the mafia in New York that Giuliani took down in his prime, what made Giuliani was the fact that he went up against a multi-billion-dollar machine and won.
Yeah.
And won. And so there's that piece. Now, I will tell you this. No one forced you to sign up to Facebook. But Facebook said, we're the new digital town square. Similar to this show, right? People watching, people listening. This is a town square. You can comment. You can say anything you want. You can say, you guys are dumb. This discussion is stupid. Or you can say, you know what? This is very insightful and I appreciate it. I disagree or I agree or all that good stuff, right? That's what they marketed them. That's what they presented themselves to the general public as. So when you enlisted, when you signed up, you thought you were signing up to the new town square, the new coffee shop, the new diner, the new place where conversations were had. So there's a very awesome business I want to bring to everyone's attention called Stuckey's.
Oh, yeah?
Stuckey's was a gas station that had a diner in the gas station. They were all over small town America, especially in Georgia. This business died. The granddaughter of the person who started Stuckey's just quit her Fortune 500 job, making almost 7 figures a year, and restarted her granddad's business, bringing back the physical town square. They're reopen. So Stuckey's used to have it was like a gas station, and it had good old candy for kids, and it had a diner. And wherever you went, if you were driving around America in the 50s or 60s, you stopped at a Stuckey's, you had some eggs and bacon, right? You got your kids some candy, you got directions of how to keep your trip. Oh, you're going down. Where are you going to? Okay, there's a shorter way to get there than the way you could go. Oh, what about politics? What about Nixon? What about, the Kennedys? She's bringing that back.
Okay.
And I love it.
Cool.
Right? But I think that's what's happening is Facebook and social media have kind of lost the title of a neutral town square. They've kind of brought themselves to the point where they're no longer neutral. They've very clearly expressed what they do. When Facebook bans a Virginia gun group, it's a gun group. It's a gun club. They don't ban ISIS.
Yeah.
They don't ban human traffickers on Facebook. They don't ban child pornography on Facebook. Hell, they close their eyes and say it's really hard to find unless you report it. We won't see it. But you can see a Virginia gun group.
Yeah, right. That's totally suspect.
Right? Or you shut down ads. You shut down paid ads to take down a governor that the citizens want to recall this governor.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been following, actually, thanks to your advice, on Telegram. I'm following a Jack Posobiec. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Jack Posobiec.
Yeah, Posobiec. And he's been talking a little bit about this this kind of subject matter, and how it is that Facebook basically, as you say, you've got ISIS on there, but they've somehow found some little obscure Virginia gun club. That's kind of mind blowing. Right? That's somebody with an agenda. And Jack's been leaking documents, or documents that have been leaked, I should say. Jack has been showing them on his Telegram profile of meetings with Zuckerberg and the rest of the gang, basically saying, God, we've got too much power. Right? At our keystrokes, at our fingertips, we've got too much power. And I suspect, I don't know this to be sure, I suspect what's happening is you've got somebody who's sitting at a desk in California working for Facebook, who's basically has the algorithms that are looking for bad actions and bad things that are happening there. I must believe that these people are wanting to shut down child pornography rings, of course. But these are also human beings with a political agenda, with any type of agenda, just an agenda for themselves. How we see the world is how we would like to paint the world. And so somebody who has at their fingertips, through keystrokes, the ability to shut down a gun club in Virginia, because I don't know if they're in California and if they're working for Facebook, more than likely, probabilities say they are most likely anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment, these kinds of things. I'm not casting a judgment. I'm simply saying that is the political sentiment of that group. And so they will target, therefore, Virginia gun groups. I can't see how an algorithm would find them above finding an ISIS or above finding a child pornography ring. That is a targeted approach by a human being with keystrokes. And Jack's been revealing all of these leaked documents, basically saying it's a problem within the hallways of Facebook.
So what you're talking about is the work of Project Veritas and James O'Keefe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know the originator. Go on, then. Talk to me about this.
So Project Veritas has been exposing. So for those who don't know who Project Veritas is, it's a nonprofit investigative journalist organization designed to uncover bad things that happen that try to get covered up. Now, people will say that they're right wing. Well, these same people that are right wing had essentially, thanks to their investigative journalism, someone who was harvesting ballots in Texas for a Republican candidate was arrested and charged with 10 years in jail. So, yes, they target both. They don't care who they target. James O'Keefe, by all means, seems to be a conservative. But I don't know that has anything to do with the work they do, because they've exposed conservative voting fraud stuff. They were the ones that exposed the ballot harvesting and fake ballots that were being done in Minnesota on behalf of Ilhan Omar and several of the other city councilmen in the city of Minnesota in those districts, where no action was taken. And a few weeks ago, they were the ones that started leaking the Jack Dorsey videos that you saw. That was all Project Veritas.
I didn't see that. What was the Jack Dorsey videos?
Jack Dorsey talking about the focus on deplatforming Donald Trump and other voices like President Trump and so forth. And Project Veritas now has its eyes on Facebook. They also have a massive lawsuit against the New York Times. So the New York Times does hit jobs against Project Veritas, and they compulsively lie in their stories, and then they issue a retraction. So Project Veritas is like, yeah, but the retractions come a week later when no one's paying attention.
Little print on the side. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I've seen
Yeah,
it.
we're issuing a retraction.
Right.
So Project Veritas said, you're a paper, you're not a platform. 230 doesn't apply to you. That's liable. We're suing you for it. And they've sued the New York Times for it.
And they've been successful?
The case is now in court.
Okay.
The New York Times have responded to the lawsuit. James O'Keefe, you can follow Project Veritas on Telegram. You can follow them on Facebook. I don't think they'll be there for much longer. I think Facebook's going to shut them down here, especially with exposezuck.com, which is where they're exposing all their Facebook stuff.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
So they have insiders. They've got whistleblowers within Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube.
We got to support these people, folks. I mean, you know, if you look at what the Obama-Biden administration did to whistleblowers, you can have a good guess at what the current Biden administration will do to whistleblowers. So we got to support these folks. I think this is really exciting work. So it's James O'Keefe, huh? I do actually follow Project Veritas. I didn't know the guys behind it. So thank you for pushing that dialogue, James. Yeah. Okay. Well, wow. In that case, we're talking about people who have human beings. And I go back to this quote. I think I've said it on almost every town hall, so I need to stop saying this. But, you know, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so when you have that kind of power, why wouldn't you want to shape the world as you see fit? You're only obeying what your conscience, what your version of morality, what your view of the world is going to be. So I kind of get why people would do this. This is not an easy leap for me to believe that somebody in Facebook would purposefully seek the Virginia Gun Club and shut them down because they don't like guns, right? I'm not saying that's my opinion, it's actually not, but I'm saying that if somebody has that opinion, I can actually quite easily see how they would be motivated to do this and blame it on the algorithm, for example. So the question is, and thank you, James O'Keefe and Project Veritas, for bringing this to our attention, how do we help these folks at Facebook govern themselves? That's the question. Right?
So I don't know. So I personally think that we don't need to help Facebook govern itself. I think we need to ensure that there's fair and free competition. Because the moment we saw something even remotely gain some popularity, like Parler, they deplatformed it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's where we need government to come in, which is to say a private business, I mean, no proof to lead up to this at this point. So we're not going to go, I don't want to go down that path because there's really no evidence or no proof of any of this. It's stuff that people say. It looks coincidental, like it was a hit job on Parler. It seemed like that within, an hour or two, everyone decided that they were no longer going to work with Parler and deplatformed it completely, took it down to the ground, literally, and they're having to rebuild from scratch. So, but they're going to rebuild and they're going to be stronger. For those who don't know, Project Veritas is Project Veritas, Veritas.com. You can also send a tip. You can donate. They're a non-profit. The Project Veritas main point is to expose corruption. And they've done that also with CNN. So they actually were listening in on CNN staff calls, their daily stand-up calls at CNN for like a month and a half, 2 months. And then they released all those tapes in the aftermath of November. There's literally tapes on there where you see CNN talking about the Hunter Biden story and going like, yeah, we're not going to cover this story. And you're like, but it's a good story. We're not going to cover. We're going to focus on this. And it always happened to be that those talking points always matched a specific, political party's talking points. So,
yeah.
Do we need to? I don't know that we need to listen again. Government isn't the end all be all. We talked yesterday on the other side of cyber. We talked about cyberbullying, right? And in Australia, they passed a law called Chloe's Law, named after a 15-year-old who committed suicide because of all the cyberbullying she was going through. She committed suicide in 2013. The law passed in 2015. It created a cyberbullying task force to address cyberbullying, and there are penalties, and that content comes off, and but at the end of the day, my answer to cyberbullying was that it's got to be a community effort, meaning it's got to be the parents and the school and the counselors and the students. Like, they all have to have part in ending cyberbullying. Passing a law about cyberbullying makes everyone feel good. Like, all right, we've done it. We've passed the law on cyberbullying. I can sleep well at night, but you haven't solved cyberbullying. The idea to serve cyberbullying is to teach people that there's consequences for stuff that they say. So when I talk on the show, I always want to be mindful of the words that I say. And sometimes I don't always say the right things, right? Because sometimes it's difficult to find the right words in the moment to say the right thing. So you don't mean to bully someone or make someone feel less of a person, but at the same time, you express something and that could have an effect on someone else. Now, where we get to here with social media platforms with, Facebook and Twitter, and what should we do? Well, I think we should do nothing. I think we're clearly seeing a shift. WhatsApp has Telegram's at 500 million users.
Yeah. Up until a week ago, I wouldn't have had as much faith as you do in the general public's ability to move these markets. But then a little Reddit group got together after seeing a massive hedge fund try to short, what was the name of that?
GameStop. AMC.
Short GameStop last week. And it just blows my mind. I love this so much that the average citizenry would get together on Reddit and say, you know what? Screw these guys trying to short this stock. Let's pump the price. Let's all buy, and blew a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund away by public opinion, right? So, James, I'm a believer now, man.
Look, I think what we saw with Reddit, what we've seen with people moving to Telegram to Signal and away from WhatsApp, what we saw with, I think from a social media perspective, we saw MeWe and what are they called? Something Clout Hub. Hang on, I'll tell you. So we've seen MeWe, Clout Hub.
What's MeWe? I've never even heard of MeWe.
MeWe's another social media platform.
Okay.
Clout Hub is an alternative. Reddit, Nextdoor. People have moved on. And most people have. I mean, your time on, I can tell you that I observe my screen time, and I look at my screen time now. I'm on social media much less. I'm on LinkedIn more than I'm on any other social media, right? I'm on YouTube a lot, right? Because I listen to music. I watch stuff on YouTube. I'll watch stuff on Rumble. The user experience on Rumble still isn't on par with YouTube. They still have some work to do. Like when in YouTube, when a video ends, it goes to the next one. On Rumble, it just replays the same video. If you're, that's kind of annoying. Reminds me of YouTube, like circa 15 years ago, right? But competition is going to come through, and Rumble is now getting more videos uploaded. More people are only producing content on Rumble, and that's going to happen. You've got platforms like Dave Rubin's Locals.com, right, where content creators like Scott Adams and many others have gone in order not to be censored.
One? I haven't heard of this one. I love
Locals.com, LOCALS.com. That's Dave Rubin's kind of content creator social media platform. You don't get free speech. Tim Pool has started his own little thing. I'm starting our own little community here in the next month or two. We won't be on here anymore. We'll be within our own, doing these shows within our own community, so that people can talk freely and also anonymously. And I think that's the big one, is a lot of people want to speak and comment, and we have a lot of people watching, but not a lot of people commenting. And I think part of it is because, they're afraid to lose their jobs. They're afraid of the repercussions.
Isn't that a shame, man? So somebody, and obviously I won't mention his name, I'll talk to you about it off air. He just reminded me on LinkedIn, was watching this show live streaming on LinkedIn, as some people probably are right now, didn't want to comment because LinkedIn stores his comments and is currently looking for a job. And is just not sure what the HR departments at these massive enterprise corporations will think if he volunteers his opinion. What a shame. I mean, let's just take a side note for just a second, ladies and gentlemen. What a shame that something like, I don't know, I support a political party, or not even that, I support a particular policy, right? Might not even have to be a party, does prevent somebody from speaking up over a platform like LinkedIn. What is there, 600 million users now? Because that person's afraid that an HR department with an agenda might look through the comments and misconstrue something. Because guess what? You can't judge a human being from 170 characters.
Well, they don't have to look at the comments. They just go and look at your posts, and they look at things you comment on or things you like. And they've created a very significant, I think, cultural blowback, if to say the very least. Yeah. And Eddie, we're here's what I want to say. The social media platforms have divided us.
Yeah.
By algorithms, by creating echo chambers, and by dismissing. And I think the latest one that's really kind of disturbed me has been, I don't know if you've seen this young girl who was an influencer for Sephora, who was deplatformed. Not deplatformed, but Sephora stopped working with her because she didn't meet their values. And she's like, huh?
And she's this wholesome, beautiful, but I think she's a conservative girl, right? And
she is a conservative girl.
Like, wow. But I mean, straight arrow, just a lovely human being, right? A typical conservative. I don't mean to disparage liberals by any means, but the typical conservative in that moderate drinking and smoking and very reserved, this kind of, but some people might say boring, right? It's just like, really, that's why you get deplatformed? But I don't know about the anonymous thing. I don't like anonymous comments.
So I'll tell you why I like anonymous comments. And one of the things I'm aiming on, the new platform I'm working on right now for the podcast and in general, is to give people the ability to act in anonymity. And what I mean by act in anonymity, here's the deal though, Eddie. We live in a place and a time where free speech is critical, but you're being persecuted for your free speech. And people don't understand the difference. So a lot of people, I had someone today tell me that look at the laws in France and Germany and Canada around speech. And I'm like, they don't believe in the same free speech we do. Yeah. They don't. Yeah. Those nations were part of the tyranny that made people come and create this country because they didn't want to be limited by the things they can or cannot say. As a Jew, I will say this. I despise white supremacists. I despise Holocaust deniers. I've been to the camps. I've seen the stories. I've been through enough Holocaust remembrance days. I've spoken to enough people that have survived the horrors of the Holocaust. But I would never, ever want those white supremacists, those Nazis, or these haters deplatformed off any platform I'm on.
Yeah. Well, it's like I say, you want, excuse my crudity, you want the arseholes to self-identify themselves. You want them to speak up.
But you know what? That's a very common conservative talking point, and I think it's bullshit. Why? And I'll tell you why. You want the assholes to... No, I don't care. Right? We never cared. You never this whole idea of cancel culture and banning so-and-so and doing so-and-so is frankly just ridiculous. Free speech is free speech. You're free to say what you want to say. You're not an asshole for not agreeing with me. You're not an asshole for having your views. You know what you're doing right now is you're making that person far more intertwined into their beliefs by delegitimizing them and deplatforming them. And your algorithms, by giving them more of what you think they want to see, aren't giving them anything. What changed people's minds before, what changed people's minds in the town square is I can come to the town square and I can wave a Nazi flag, right? And maybe I shouldn't use Nazi Germany, but I can wave a flag of whatever opinion I got. I can say abortions are good or bad, right? And in the town square, you would have people that would support your opinion, and you would have people that would be against your opinion. And those people would talk, and they would share ideas. And some people would go to one side of the fence and switch because they go, wow, you know what? You're right. I've never considered that. My view is false. I guess I flip-flop on this specific issue. And on the other side, Eddie, you have people that would do the same. Now, what social media has done, what Twitter and Facebook have single-handedly done, is they've eliminated that discourse. And what they've allowed to have happen is only one opinion matters, and every other opinion is dismissed as racist, as white supremacist, as all these things. And this has been going on in this country for a very, very long time. This isn't new. This isn't Donald Trump. This isn't Joe Biden. Those guys are just placeholders to a greater issue that's being driven by money-grabbing, hungry corporations that are looking to increase your time on their platform in these echo chambers that make you feel like you're part of something when you're not. It was proven that Black Lives Matter in the Russia investigation, in the Russian hoax investigation, in the report that they wanted to impeach a president on, right? That initial interference in the U.S. elections going all the way back to 2012 was done by Russian. In fact, the first BLM kind of like hint of BLM and Antifa was Russian and Chinese propaganda targeted at Western nations. And they've grown this campaign. And 8 years later, we see Antifa in the world. We see BLM all over the globe.
Most people still don't know that, man.
But that's the truth now. That people will be like, James, you're full of it. I'm not disparaging those movements. I'm not disparaging them. But I'm saying the origin of it, the first person to create it, the person to plant it was a troll. And that troll played on sentiment. And instead of addressing that sentiment in the town square, i.e. police brutality, let's have a conversation. Because guess what happened a few days ago? We lost 2 FBI agents who were murdered in cold blood by a suspect for child exploitation.
Right. Yeah, I know. In Florida. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Law enforcement's put their back ends on the line every single day.
I don't think
every single day.
I don't think you meant though that Black Lives Matter, for example, was created by Russian bots. I think
no. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter was created by a sentiment planted by a troll, and what they did is they isolated that sentiment. They made that sentiment move. And then they incorporated and essentially turned it on, right? And as social media grew, so the difference of doing a propaganda campaign in the eras before social media is you had to have to go someone in the town square, and that person had to be such a good salesperson that he can bring people in and so, and then you would do the post-op on that person, and you'd be like, he's not real, right?
Right.
And the whole movement would die. Now, I'm not saying that about BLM and Antifa. Again, let me be crystal clear. Antifa is a terrorist organization. Hands down, bar none. You can try to convince me otherwise. Anyone that goes out wearing military all black, covering their face, destroying private property, hurting innocent people, targeting journalists and people you don't agree with is a terrorist. Done in the discussion. BLM is a movement that at its core, had a very, very good cause. We needed to address policing, and we needed to address police brutality against the African-American community in America. That was an issue back then when it first started. It's being addressed, and the numbers get better each and every single year by FBI statistics. Go to the Washington Post and look it up. It's right there in your face.
Oh, yeah.
FBI crime statistics, you see that those numbers are getting better. Could we do better? Absolutely. We could always do better. That's the point of humanity. We evolve and we get better. But to dismiss things, to me,
well, Collion Noir puts it well. He's a Second Amendment advocate, a guy out of Texas, a lawyer, very articulate young man. He says, Black Lives Matter, the sentiment, I can totally get behind that. Black Lives Matter, the corporation, And I agree. Like Black Lives Matter, the corporation, a $300 million corporation. Where are the schools? Where are the school programs? Where are the playgrounds? Where's,
where did most of their money go? Do you know where Black Lives Matter Inc. money went?
Biden. A lot of money for political campaigns. For the most part, it's a political movement, right? And it's not a political movement for Black lives. It's a political movement for the extreme left. That's what people need to get right. Putting that one aside, though, the whole, and it's interesting. You call it the typical conservative mantra of why we would allow First Amendment to anybody that they, as I put it, assholes get to identify themselves. I love to go back, and this is why I've got Berlin behind me, because if that crazy hair guy with the silly mustache was flopping around in that town square, and there was no book burning, and there was no denying of free speech from anybody, I think most people would go, that guy's a little bit crazy. Right? He's a little bit out to lunch, this fella, right? So let's move away from that one. That's what I mean about the fact that, and I agree with you, for you as a Jewish guy, it would be abhorrent to hear about the Ku Klux Klan talking. I remember Vice News, if this is what they call themselves nowadays, are in Brooklyn. It's actually a Canadian guy, Shane Smith, kind of a cool dude, actually, that started Vice as a newspaper or a magazine in Canada, came down to Brooklyn, turned it into $1 billion company, became a billionaire himself. And I would say extreme, but certainly left-wing, but extreme left-wing news outlet. So they were covering the Ku Klux Klan. This was back in, I think, 2016-ish era. And of course, it was all wrapped up in the whole Trump campaign, blah, blah, blah. And so they were following the head guy, whatever his name, the grandmaster guy of the Ku Klux Klan, following him around saying, this guy's going to have a rally. And I must admit, I laughed, and it's laughable because this fella gets into this van, this reporter, this little lady that's just all very concerned with what she's reporting on. This is going to be a really big deal. He says, there's going to be a crowd. We're going to rally our troops, and there's going to be a big movement. And you're thinking, gee whiz, really? This is happening now in America in 2016? And then he makes a sentence that wasn't edited out properly by Vice, and it should have been for their story to work. His sentence was this: there's going to be hundreds of us. And then he carries on talking. And I thought, hundreds? Really? There's 337 million Americans in the United States. I've been back living in this country gratefully as a guest with my accent for about 5 years. I've never met one KKK. I've never met one super racist person. Everybody I meet is just beautiful and lovely for the most part. 337 million, and there's hundreds of KKK members, just hundreds, that's it. It's like, this is not a threat. Right? These are horrible people, to be sure. Let them speak. There's a few hundred of them, apparently, according to this grandmaster and according to this program on Vice News. So this is why I say I like them talking to self-identify themselves, because they just self-identified as being hundreds strong, not millions or even hundreds of thousands or even tens of thousands or even thousands. There's a few hundred of them. Look, I go back to, and this is a left-wing guy, another Canadian, as a matter of fact, Steven Pinker, who wrote a book called Enlightenment Now. He's a Harvard professor, a psychologist, I think a clinical psychologist. And in the book Enlightenment Now, it's basically about all the good news stories. We've progressed so much in society. The reality is, and listen to this. I was about to say the reality of slavery is no longer a thing. It is a thing in the Middle East right now. Dubai, with Indians and a few people from Africa, but mostly people from India. We should be talking about that most certainly. But the reality is that the progress in the United States has been exemplary. That's what we should be talking about in the town square, right? This is what we should be celebrating in our classrooms instead of things like critical race theory. We should be celebrating the fact that we have come to this place where we're not clawing each other's eyebrows out like a bunch of primates, right? Just getting ready for mating season, that we're actually here instead having civilized conversation and having, frankly, a great time. And the bad people are in the hundreds now, not the millions. A good news story. A good news story, my friend.
So
we're coming to the top of the hour, well over the hour.
We're well over the hour. So we'll wrap up here with a final thought, which is Apple versus Facebook, Parler versus Amazon. The giants have awoken. The DOJ versus Google and YouTube on the antitrust suit that was filed in October. The giants are now in battle. And there's critical importance for us to follow through, see what's happening, and ensure that we are, one, properly informed, and number two, that we write the DOJ and write the courthouses and encourage that people use courage in the way they deal with these cases so that we can finally really get some real meaningful change. Because the real meaningful change is going to come when the lawsuit that Facebook filed against Apple is going to get thrown out or yet litigated, and Apple will win it. Period. Because I think Apple's going to bring out, Apple could get 100 million Apple users to come out and say, we don't mind it.
Right. Yeah.
And Facebook's going to have a hard time squeezing 100 million people that are going to be like, hey, we're against this.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Apple wins this time and time again. I, for one, would be a witness on behalf of Apple saying, I buy Apple because of these features. These are features I value, and I want these features. Period. End of discussion.
And certainly, I think, we need a lot more informed consent. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of GDPR, which is the European governance for privacy laws. So Google, Facebook, the big tech companies, they basically have to disclose heavily what they're doing with people's information. You got Shield in New York. You James, mentioned the California Privacy Protection Act, I think it's called. And these things are actually kind of interesting because even if you just do business, let's say you live in Colorado, but you do business with a company in New York, yes, you're liable, right? So that actually drags.
So, I mean, we're not talking we're not talking about privacy here. What we're talking about is fair business practices. And I think that the thing about privacy laws is privacy laws are designed to fine companies for privacy violations, right? But they don't define what privacy is. And the difference between GDPR and CCPA is GDPR clearly defines what your privacy is. CCPA does not. CCPA leaves it very, very, very loose. And that's the difference between America and Europe and Australia.
Well,
Australian and European lawmakers write a law so that it's interpreted as it is written.
I was talking to a buddy of mine who's he's a cybersecurity lawyer in Manhattan. He rather jestingly, but slightly seriously said, if the Europeans could innovate, there'd be no GDPR today. If Google had come out of Europe, they wouldn't have written GDPR. It's basically a bureaucrat's dream. It's a stack of papers. I have to take this training once a year as part of all directors and above at the company I work for have to do it. But it's a stack of papers this thick. And you got to learn a lot. But I would like to see more. Wouldn't it be great if you just saw how much you specifically you are being monetized by all of these groups? If there was a little tiny dashboard showing that,
let's make that. So Ali, we'll make that the debate next week. Next week we'll debate whether or not social media platforms should pay you in the town square.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't suggesting pay you, but let's debate it. Absolutely, that'd be good fun. At least they should be showing how much money they're making from you. I'm not necessarily saying they should do that, but I think
we'll just take all the revenue divided by the amount of users. That's how much you know, right?
Give me like 10%. Yeah, one point on our show, I want to discuss Elon Musk's Neuralink because a chimpanzee just played a video game using only its thoughts. Whoa. So that's going to be maybe the week afterwards.
Yeah, Elon Musk. We'll talk about Elon Musk, my favorite billionaire. So I love Elon Musk. Literally love Elon Musk. So we'll talk about that all. Thank you for everyone tuning in. Thank you to everyone who commented and joined the show, folks. We'll be back next week. Make sure you tune into the Tech Town Square right here on the Cyber Hub Podcast channel. Eddie, myself, James Azar, thank you so much, folks. Have a great evening, day, night, afternoon, wherever you are in this beautiful world. Most importantly, practice social distancing and stay cyber safe.